Hello, beautiful human. I am Zach. That is Dan. We welcome to the studio today, for the first time ever, a British singer-songwriter who you probably know from his monster hit, Stargazing. I mean, it's been everywhere. The thing has 1 billion streams and counting, but you have a bunch of music. You're a really gifted individual. We welcome to the studio, Myles Smith, everybody.
Hey. Thank you. Do I clap for myself?
Yeah,
That's
of course you do.
How could you not? Bro, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have so many questions, but I do want to know, like, what you're dealing with right now, right? Like, off of the heels of Stargazing and people reaching into your catalog in a bunch of new different ways, and obviously the Brits. Has this been the plan in your mind all along?
You know, it's been quite a journey, you know, because I started writing music probably when I was like 10, 11 years old, right? And so for me, it's always just been the thing that I love doing. I was like terrible at sport. I was like the chubby kid who couldn't kick a ball properly or throw a ball properly. So like the next coolest thing's music. And so like for my whole life I've aspired and dreamed to go on and do the big things, and sort of you never quite believe you can until sort of that moment switches where it's happening, and it's super weird. So for me, I've always dreamed of it, but not necessarily planned for it. And so it coming now, like sort of at 26 is still a shock, but also really awesome.
Was Stargazing that switch?
I would say it was like one of many switches that happened really quickly, because I released my first sort of like solo song in my home, and then soon after there was solo, and both of those songs really took on a life of their own online. And then to roll into an EP and then Stargazing all sort of within a 6-month period, or maybe less, like a 4-month period, was just absolutely nuts. And so yeah, that switch happened progressively over like 4 to 5 months, and I was like, this is really flipping odd.
In biggest way your life changes?
There's so many big ways, but so many small ways. I mean, I could pay my rent and bills now, which is which is pretty awesome. But like, it's like the small things now. Like, I could sort of like, I don't know, go to a restaurant with my friends and be like, I could pay for this meal for everyone. Or like, I don't know, my mum likes this dress in a shop and I can buy it. But then also just like the stuff of like just being more confident in myself and my ability, which is like really awesome and not something that you think about when this all happens. Like I had such like, I didn't realize, but such self-doubt and such like low confidence in what I could do and what I can achieve. But then sort of having that recognition and support from people all over the world just like really changed my own mentality and view of myself as well, which was really awesome.
And how does that trickle into your creative process?
I think it's less doubt in myself when I'm in like a writing room or when I'm on my own writing songs now. It's like, before I used to like write a song and be like, is that good? It's kind of really shitty, but I love it. And then I'd show people, they'd be like, it's good, but I didn't quite believe it. But now sort of having done it a couple times, I'm like, I can write a good song, and you know, people will like what I do. And I think just having that sort of assurance when you're doing the thing that you love sort of like just opens so much worlds.
Can you tell me, you start writing songs when you're 12, 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how many songs do you think you've written before Stargazing? And there was 2 others before, right? It was Solo and Home.
Mm-hmm.
But like before those, and Nice to Meet You. When does Nice to Meet You come?
Oh, that came like end of last year, so like November last year.
So post Stargazing.
Yeah, post Stargazing.
Okay, so how many songs do you think you've written before you got Stargazing?
Oh, thousands. They're all terrible.
Is that real?
Yeah, I've honestly thousands, man. Like when I was 13, I made this goal of writing a song a day. So I was doing that for about like 4 or 5 years. So
that's
like,
how you do it.
Yeah. So I was really like carving out the time to write a song a day, and I'd be at home and I'd go scribble in my diary, and then I'd run out into the living room, show my mum, and she'd be like, yeah. Keep going.
You needed that.
Yeah, I did. And you know, she's my biggest supporter and biggest critic as well. And it's like, I wouldn't change the world, but to have, you know, such honest and or authentic responses to my music so early on, I guess helped me with the process of getting better. Because my mum is the best, but she won't lie to me. If a song's bad, she'll be like, son, it's not great, but you did it, you know. And sort of going through that early and sort of like having the people closest to you sort of like help build your tough skin for the job that you do means that sort of way when you get to here and now, which I want to point out is absolutely fucking nowhere. I still got so far to go, but it sort of prepares you for getting here.
By the way, like that's like both scary and freeing and awesome, but also scary, right? Like that you've made it here and there's still so much of the journey left.
Yeah, but it's exciting. You know, it's like I look up to sort of like the Ed Sheerans of the world and the Coldplays of the world and the Adeles of the world, and I'm like, I'd love to get to where they are and to do the things that they've done. And like, you know, you mentioned the Brits, and you know, for me it was super awesome getting a Brit Award so soon in my career, and before having an album out is even crazier to me. But at the same time, it's like people are like, oh, you ready to be the next Adele? Fuck no. You know, Adele was grinding for 10 years, Ed Sheeran for 15. Like, you know, it's for me, it's about going past a moment and being able to build a career, and always reminding myself that although you could have these really cool things happen and all of these awards and accolades, like none of them mean nothing until you've done it long enough to truly garner that respect.
I want to know when you first like showed your mom a song that she actually liked. You remember that moment?
I do. Yeah. I remember I showed her this song. It was called Dream Girls. In retrospect, awful, but for a 13-year-old, pretty good. And I remember her being like, "You wrote that?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You wrote that?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do you not believe me?" And she was like, "You know what? This is like really good." And like, it started this, you know, and it's weird. I think about it, you know, like sort of seeking that approval sort of from young. I've never really thought of that, but you know, it started this chain of like this. This isn't therapy, is it? God, you've asked me nothing, and I'm sat here like it's therapy. It's but I guess it started this process of like that affirmation really early on of like, okay, if I could write a good song and my mum loves it, that means other people like it. And I still got that process now. You know, my mum hears things first before anyone, and it really grew my confidence super early on. And yeah, that was the first time. A song called Dream Girl. It was on YouTube when I was in school. It got like 1,000 views and I felt like the shit. But it doesn't exist anywhere anymore.
How cool is, like, your mom is a big part of this journey.
Yeah.
And a big part of the process.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing to share.
Well, yeah, it definitely is, man. I think she's been there from day one, and you know, in a world, and I'm sure you guys are the same, where like the more success you have, like sometimes it comes with a bit of a lighter response with regards to critique and how people tell you, or if your music's shit, like less people are going to tell you the more successful you are. And so always having someone that I know for certain will tell me if this is bad or not is like a really good person to have in my life.
It's amazing. How'd you learn, because you're a self-taught musician,
Mm-hmm.
where'd you learn that you should be writing a song a day?
I was watching podcasts from like super early on, and they weren't like podcasts back then. They were sort of like more people like vlogging and stuff. Like I've always been a fan of like not studying successful people, but just intrigued about how their brain works. And I remember seeing like little clips of Ed talking about write this many songs a day, and he has a whole theory of a tap where like you turn on a tap and it runs bad water for so long, and eventually good water will flow. And that's the same as songwriting, about, you know, getting out all the bad and eventually good songs will come. And I remember, like, even though I had no idea what like that metaphor truly meant at 13, it said to me, write more, you know. And so I just found myself writing so many songs, and you know, that theory in my mind is super true. And I think that's where it came from, just watching people I looked up to talking about music and just saying the more you do it, the better you get.
It's, by the way, it's like deeply true. All of it. I mean, and by the way, to be self-taught, how does that feel? Like, you did this genuinely on your own with the help of your mom.
Yeah. It feels
What?
really awesome until my bandmates ask me what chords are in my new song, and I'm like, I don't know. You put your finger there, you put your finger there, and it makes this sound. So my music theory is absolutely dreadful, but like I luckily I could figure my way around sound, and that's how I write my music. And you know, it does feel really cool and really awesome. And I feel like by not learning traditional ways, I've been able to approach things in a non-traditional way, if that makes sense. And not having that foundation of like classical music or where things should go has allowed me to sort of like experiment more in music, which I don't know, found a real benefit by doing it.
When you're writing a record today, do you set a goal? Do you go in blank slate? Like, what is your process?
that's changed like so much in like the last year. Like I, for a while, like was, you know, and I think it's sort of the artist journey. I for a while was like listening to artists and was like, I want to sort of be like this person, so I'm going to sort of write songs like this person, or I want to sound like this person, so I'm going to try write songs to sound like this person. And I think that you do that to sort of like garner those first steps into creativity, you know. And I'm sure you guys in your fields did the same for a while. You're like, I love how they formatted this, like I want to try that. And then you get to a point where it's like, I do love this person, but I don't want to be that person. And I think there's like a changing point in where you could be sort of like directly inspired by something and then take influence from something. And I think that the longer I've done this, my style is more like, I really love what this person's done, but it's not necessarily the sound or the words or lyrics, it's how it made me feel. And I think that that's what I try to do in my music. I'm like, that record by Oasis back then made me feel like this, and I want to capture that feeling, and not by sounding like Oasis, but what is it in either the lyric or the song that just made me completely let myself go. And with my song writing process now, I chase a feeling rather than a lyric or a sound or a sonic. And so, you know, I want people to feel good listening to this, or I want people to like be introspective listening to this. And I'm like, what music did that to me, and how could I emulate that feeling?
For a record like My First Heartbreak, is that a feeling that is something that starts with you, or is that a feeling that a song made you feel a certain way and you want to explore it within yourself? What is that?
My First Heartbreak's, you know, because how I explained is the way that I write like 80% of the time. Then there's like 20% of the time where it's a really selfish process, and it's for me, you know. And this was a record I wrote maybe like 2 years ago, and I was with a really close friend, Andrea, and we were speaking to each other and talking about it, and she was really like, what do you want to say? And a bit like this, she was like, what, if you're not thinking about anyone else in the room, like what do you want to talk about? And like it really opened my mind. And like on that day, some things had happened in my personal life that I was like feeling some way about stuff that had gone on in the past in my life. And I found myself like in this spot where I was like, I've had this idea written down in my notes for like maybe like 5 years of a song called like My First Heartbreak. And I've just always wanted to sort of articulate how I grew up as a child and transitioned into a man, and how sort of like my dad leaving was my first sort of interaction with heartbreak, because we talk about it so many times in terms of like relationships or love or a high school fling. But truly for some of us, like we experience heartbreak way too soon in life, with me being one of them. And it was a really tough song to write, because I was reliving almost every single moment that I'd gone through, from, you know, him leaving to living in a really troubled household, to the arguments, to the fighting, to the getting to the teenage stage and being angry and wanting to ask yourself questions like, why don't I sort of like love myself? Why do I always feel insecure? Why don't I trust anybody? Why do I always like cover up the way that I'm feeling? And then you sort of land on this question on like, ultimately, like, why did he leave? Like this person who's in your life to be there and you know, always supposed to be portrayed as a person who sort of leads you through life, left so soon on. And I didn't have answers to any of these questions. And the song sort of followed that through like flow of my thinking from like being a child to being a teenager to where I am now, of being like, hopefully when I get the opportunity one day to become a father, the thing that I promised to never do is leave, because of the impact that had on me and sort of like the chasm that left in my heart.
You have a lyric in the song about the person who broke your heart looks a little like you.
Yeah. For a while, it was a really weird period in my life. I was probably about like 17, 18, starting to mature, and like I used to look in the mirror and just get so angry that I used to like see him in me. And it was like a true anger. Like I really hated it, because like there's one thing in like seeing some of your actions and behaviors like resemble the person that, you know, let you down, but it's another thing to physically see them in you. And like, you know, I really wanted to let that go. Like I dropped his last name. I'd tried to like, you know, completely sort of reinvent the wheel when I went to therapy for the first time and become myself. And there was this like weird thing that I couldn't get over, where I still looked like him. And it was was a really tough process. And so, I say, My First Heartbreak looks a little bit like me. And I end on, it's something is bitter and it's sweet, because there's one thing is like, what, despite all he's done is like, I'm still the person I am and still have the experience I am because of him. But also I had to go through all of that at the same time. And it's such a dichotomy between the two to live the benefits and the cons of the situation.
Because like, do you even think we'd be having this discussion right now if he was still in your life, or even like you making music in this way?
Yeah.
Doing this.
And that's why, success for me is such a dual-sided thing, because, I had to go through that in order to be here, but I wish I hadn't, but at the same time, I wish I had. And I find myself flipping between the two all the time. And that song sort of captures like I guess me balancing the wheel of someone being here and not, and whether I love it or hate it.
What was it like playing it for your mom?
She cried real bad. She cried really bad. And the last time I saw her cry that bad was like going through the divorce and the realization of everything. And it was super messy and a story for another day. And, it wasn't a typical, like, they fall out of love, they leave. It was a whole saga of things that really, impacted us as children, but also her as a person. And I remember playing her that song, and it was like one of those moments growing up, like showing her some of my first songs are just me and her. I went to a house, we were in a bedroom, and I played it just like the old days. And this time there was this real sense of like loss and hurt and grief and emptiness that I saw in her that, was one, I guess subconsciously what I was trying to achieve and making her feel, but not in how she responded to it. And, we had some back and forth discussions, and part of the reason the song's taken so long to come out is because it has real life implications in terms of like, this is my story, yes, but so many of my friends, so many of my family don't even know what we experienced growing up. And so, for me, it was like, I feel like I'm reaching a level of artistry where I'm being honest and authentic. But the naivety to think that, other people's lives are impacted by that as well. And, since then we've had conversations about it. She loves the song. She's so supportive of the song. But I think, it's delayed me being more, I guess, open with the world, because her influence in my life is so genuine, so unique, that she almost opened the door to go, once you do this, you do know that you're opening part of yourself to the world. And I'm still a kid. Like, even though I'm 26, I'm still a kid at heart. And I was like, oh yeah, like people are gonna listen and people are gonna ask questions. And yeah, that's I don't think I was ready for that 2 years ago, but definitely more so now.
Do you think your relationship would be the way it is today with your mom if your dad was still around?
That's a good question. Probably. I think it would look different, and I think it probably would have taken us longer to get to this point. But I think when things are meant to be, they're meant to be. And, I'm super happy that I don't have to find out, but I'd really hope so.
Do you get any of the answers to any of the questions you've been asking from making this record?
Yeah, I did. I learned a lot about myself. I learned, that closure doesn't necessarily come from waiting for someone else to give you the answer, but it actually comes from within. And you can find closure in a non-answer as well, which for me is super liberating and empowering, because like going through my first breakups, I'd be like texting the girl like flipping 20 times, like, why'd you leave? Do you not love me? Are you getting milk too? Like, but now it's like, in any form of life, is like, I'm not waiting for someone else to answer questions that I have. It's like, I could find an answer in the actions that have happened. And it's really helped me as a person grow, because I'm not putting my life on pause, waiting to find things out. And I can move forward with confidence that, hey, I've done all I can, I've said all I can, and I'm okay with that.
Would you be open to seeing your dad or meeting with your dad if this song was to do that?
You know what? That is a level of maturity I don't think I'm at yet. But, it's never a never. But it also isn't a for now. And I think, I I'm sure he's having an amazing life, and you know, all the anger and frustration and hurt is gone. And I think that you go through that when someone leaves. You go through sort of like being confused, then being super angry, and then doing the thing when you get to a teenager and you probably get too drunk and you're like, oh, I don't care anyway. Then you're truly numb to it all, and then you get to the point of like, I don't care, but not in like a I don't care way, but in like a I truly don't care. And I don't wish any bad. And if anything, I'm hoping he's having an amazing life, and some of the things that he got wrong in my circumstance, I really hope he learned from it. But for me, I don't need that in my life, and I don't have any questions that I need answered. And so for me, it wouldn't be a task that would bring any value. But it also wouldn't be something that I'd be like, absolutely no way. But yeah, I'm in a point in life where I just truly don't care, and I wish the best for everyone in that circumstance.
Why are you sure that he's having a great life?
Because the thing is, I think, you know, through family connections here and there, I'm sure he's moved on with life, and I'm sure that, you know, he has learnt from his mistakes, and I'm sure he has got a family that he's doing a good job with. And although it came from circumstances in which was difficult for me and for my family, I truly am happy that he's learnt from that. And being 26 now, I understand that no matter if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, everyone's a fucking child at heart. You know, we're all just kids having kids. And it took me a long time to realize that. And when I realized that this is everyone's first go at it, and I'm like, if I was dad now, I'd probably make so many mistakes, you know, but I don't want him to live this life feeling guilty or feeling bad or feeling horrible. I just want him to learn from it and move forward with it. And I'm okay with that. And I've done more than enough therapy to be okay with that, where I truly mean it.
Oh, you have a really good heart. You're also going to be a great dad one day.
I really hope so.
I mean, that's like one of the largest blessings, right? Is to be exactly what you weren't able to have to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is paying it forward in new ways.
Yeah.
So, and it's one of the most powerful records I have ever heard.
Thank you so much.
It's so beautifully done.
Thank you.
Your vocals are incredible. Really. I mean, like it's when you get into the booth to craft something, and I don't even know if you go into a booth. I don't know. Where do you record your songs?
I record my songs normally with one of my close friends, Peter Fenn, out here in LA.
So in a real recording studio?
No, well, this is a thing. We've like inherited this idea now to like leave recording studios because they could be so sterile. You know, they're like, you walk in and you're like, we are making a song today. And it's like, if the product in which we're trying to create is supposed to evoke joy or happiness or even sadness at times, how are we supposed to draw that emotion from a sterile environment? And so we'll go book an Airbnb somewhere flipping random. If you want to write a sad song, we're going to London in the misery of the rain. You know, if you want to be happy, like we wrote Stargazing in Malibu, which was absolutely incredible, you know. And so we've like, yeah, tried to inherit this idea of like, let's try and match our environment with the music that we're trying to make. And so it changes every single time.
And where was My First Heartbreak?
My First Heartbreak was written in London on a very rainy day at Andrea's house, which isn't miserable by any means, but it was a gloomy day, you know, and I think it was just a really cozy and intimate environment. And I think hopefully I captured that in the record, that it was written in a super, super small space, smaller than this room. And it was just an intimate, like sort of like, I guess, back and forth conversation between friends, and that resulted in this. And we took that demo, and I went in with Aaron Ebbidge, who's a really close friend of mine, and I know he did Ceilings by Lizzie, and I thought they captured that song really well. And so went in with Aaron into a recording studio, even though I've just absolutely ripped the shit out of recording studios. But once the idea's there, we've got it, and we just made. We didn't even use the studio. We used the monitoring room, which was also about the size of this room, put all the lights dim, and we were just like, we're going to track this as simple as possible, just a guitar, your vocals, and let's go. And then we added every single piece sort of individually after that.
At what point in your life did you find that vocal? When did you realize you could sing?
Oh man, I wish it was like a beautiful story. Like, I woke up and I could sing, but I was terrible for years. I was really bad, but like I said earlier,
It's a muscle.
yeah, it's a muscle. I was lucky I could write off sport early. Like I was not the sport kid. Like honestly, man, like chubby, spotty, little bit bullied, and I was like, footy, probably not. Like basketball, not tall enough. Sprinting, God, I could get about 60 meters before I'm out of breath. So I was like, pure, this is my only chance. And so, yeah, for me, finding my voice came through like just, singing songs really badly until eventually I got a little bit better, and I went to sort of like little pub gigs when I was like younger, and they wouldn't let me in because I wasn't old enough, and they'd be like, right, as long as you promise you don't drink and you get the hell out after you sung, we'll let you play. I know in America's 21, but when you was as chubby as I was, I probably could have passed for 18 when I was 12. And yeah, just cut my teeth playing in Irish bars and little pubs and little clubs around Luton where I grew up.
But genuine truth that like you get like, this is a muscle. Like you acquired this. Consistency is what helped you get here.
Tell my personal trainer that it's a muscle because he is fighting for more muscle.
No, you go, dude, I write songs and I have a voice. Both muscles.
Yeah.
Genuine muscles. Dude, the Lainey Wilson collaboration. So Nice to Meet You exists in the world, and then you give it. Does she hear the song? How does that connection happen?
Yeah, so Lainey heard the song and reached out directly. She was like, "Oh my God, I absolutely love this song.
She's so great.
Oh, she's awesome, and I'd love to do the song with you." And for me, being British, like the whole idea of a country artist on a song was like new to me. But like I looked into Lainey because I'd been aware of sort of a couple of the songs, but then I was like, oh my God, like she's a phenomenal artist, and I was like felt really privileged that she'd reached out, and I was so naive to like the scale of it until like I was like, oh God, she's amazing. And her voice is incredible. And yeah, we jumped on a FaceTime, which was the biggest sort of like cultural like difference ever, because I'm at home in rainy England and she's like out in the sun somewhere in Mexico or something like that doing a festival. And I promise you, the first 3 sentences I couldn't understand a word. And I was just like, love you too, because it's so thick, like the accent. And yeah, she was like, I love the song. I'm not even gonna do the accent. I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to offend anyone. And I really am a big fan of what you're doing, and we should definitely work on it. And I was like, absolutely. And I was like, just let me know whenever. She was like, great, I'm gonna go jet ski. I'll be back soon with a verse. And I was like, wow, sweet. And literally a few days later, she got back with a verse, and I was like, wow, she's and her vocals are they're just what the hell.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, insane. And so yeah, it was really nice, and we stayed connected, and she's just a super humble and super lovely person.
Are we building towards an album, or is that not on your, I mean, you have enough songs to fill many albums.
Yeah.
But is that like, do you think of that at all?
Yeah, I always think about albums. For me, I've been super, I guess, careful in not rushing an album because of momentum. So I knew when Stargazing came out, and this is why I love my label, like so many people had hit me like, yo, maximize the momentum, put an album out now. And I'm like, I really don't want to do that thing of like one song, album, then hey, you will never hear from me again.
Genius.
I was just like, I would rather put time and effort into something that I truly believe is great, and if the world thinks it's awful, I could at least sit and go, well, I think is awesome, And so yeah, definitely working towards an album. I'm not sure if it's going to be ready anytime soon, and that's purely because I've been touring for 9 months last year and 8 months again this year, and I just want to give it the care and attention it needs. And I think with every release, I can't put out anything I don't love, and that's lessons that I've learned from so many great friends in the past that are like, just don't put out a song you don't love, because if it does well, you're going to hate playing it. And if it doesn't do well, you're going to hate the fact that you put it out.
Real.
You were talking about chasing feelings when you're writing songs. What were you chasing when writing Stargazing?
Stargazing was a cool one, man. Like we were, and this is me, Pete and Jesse, we just booked an Airbnb in Malibu, and we said, you know what? Like we've done like 30 songs by this point, and we're like, should we just write something that we just don't think and try finish it within half an hour. And we were like, yeah, great idea. We spent this whole weekend trying to be smart, which none of us are. And trying to, do internal rhymes and metaphors and all that rubbish. And we were like, let's just no-brain this and go, let's try and put love and the feeling, of love and finding that person, which we've all had similar experiences with in life, and try articulate that in like the most simple way possible. And yeah, within like 20 minutes, we wrote Stargazing. And at the time, we were all like, oh, cool song. And it wasn't even in like our top 5 of the songs that we wrote that 4 days we were there. And so about 2 days later, me and Pete go and do a finishing day, which is like where you go and like finish up recording on ideas you really liked. And we pulled up Stargazing. It was like, oh, it's cool. It's got legs. And then me and Pete were just experimenting with instruments, and Pete just started droning on the piano. And I remember going, holy shit. And he looked at me and he's so like energetic, and he was like, we got one. And we printed it. I took it home at about 3 a.m. in the morning, and my manager was there, my brother was there, my best friend Dom, who I flew in from Nashville because I'd just signed with a label at this point. And I played it through the house speaker. I've never stayed in a mansion before this, by the way, and I didn't pay for it. The label did. It was like I just signed. I was like, I'm getting a fucking mansion. I was like, and a pool. I want a pool. We can't do pools in the UK. It's freezing. And so like we played it through the ceiling speakers, which I've also never had. I'm from Luton, working class as hell, and I was like, playing it through ceiling speakers, didn't realise it was the whole house, blared it, and I just remember my manager jumping up and he was like, what is this? And I was like, you've never done that to any song I've ever sent you in my life. And FaceTime at A&Rs in the UK, it must have been like so early in the morning for them. They were like, this is incredible. FaceTime Derek, who's my US A&R, he's a very big character, and he was like, we got one. And yeah, matter of weeks later, it was the art of just perfecting the record, because it was still a real scratch, like no true lead vocals or harmonies on it. And over the weeks, I was like, I'd put the snippet up on TikTok and it blew up instantly. And I was like, oh, I got to finish this record. And so me and Pete were back and forth for like a month, and then eventually put the record out.
So do you put the snippet on TikTok after everybody's like receiving it really well, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, after my like sort of internal team were like, this is really dope. And then there was this conversation with the label where they were like, we should hold on to this one for a little bit. But I'm like so excitable. Like when I love something, I'll be like, yeah, we'll hold on to it for 3 weeks, post immediately after, as I did. And so no one was ready for the record. Everyone was like, whoa, like we have to put a marketing plan together. We have to like activate all the markets.
Yeah, but these things, like, that's how they're born today.
Yeah. And it's
always catching up.
I know, it's really cool. I've got a little bit more like sensible as I've gone on in terms of like finding songs I love. But with that one particularly, I remember them specifically saying, let's hold it for a few weeks. And I hung up. I was like, post. I was like, post that shit. Yeah, it felt so good.
Yeah, but like the truth is, like, the algorithm could have been different 3 weeks from that day.
100%.
Like it's all like that. It is a weird gamble. Like
I know, but to be fair, being a new artist, and bear in mind, hadn't released a record with them, and they told me, don't do it. Well, not don't release a song, but don't do it anytime soon. It was like super ballsy, but the way they responded so quickly was like immense. Like they know nothing about me in terms of like, but at this point I'm still no one. And so the fact that they just all gathered around me, like globally around this song that they'd never been a part of. And we're just like, it's go time. And yeah, it grew, and it's still doing a thing, which is awesome.
How do you know when a song is ready then?
I think when I listen to it and there's nothing I want to add or take away. And sometimes I wake up on a Monday feeling miserable and I'm listening to a happy song like this is a worse song. And sometimes I wake up on a Tuesday sunny in LA and I'm like, yeah, this is the best song ever. I think it's just having it for a few weeks where I could listen to it in different environments and go, I like this song. And My First Heartbreak, 2 years later, I'm finally at the point I'm like, I love this song. And not all songs take 2 years, but I think if it's meaningful and it's part of me, I want to make sure I get it right.
Are you listening to that My First Heartbreak throughout the 2 years, or are you just like, did you just know it was the right time? Like, what was that?
Yeah, so many times. There was so many times I like the song I wrote on the day is the exact same it is lyrically and melodically today, but I went through like 100 lyric changes because I was like, I don't know if I want to put that part of myself out into the world. I was like, I don't want to say that either. I was like, I don't want to put my mum's emotions out into the world. And then, you know, it got to a point where I was like, I made all these refinements. So I was like, this isn't the song that it was supposed to be. And, you know, it was, I hate doing the name drop thing. I feel like such an arsehole. But I remember sitting with Ed and playing Ed the record. And he had a little tear in his eye after playing it. And he was like to me, like, this song's incredible and you should definitely release it. And sitting next to the Ginger Prince here and that, I was like, you've got a point. And he was like, don't sit with it. He was like, sometimes you put stuff out into the world and it's not to be a mega hit. It's not to be the next best thing. It's to be a part of your story and a part of your life. And it was like, you owe yourself that to give the art a light, but you also owe the fans a chance to connect with you more. And, you know, I walked away from that and I was just like, damn. And he said something really, really profound. He was like, you know, as a songwriter, as an artist, he was like, you almost have like this active duty to be able to help connect people, but also in that people could find synergy in your story and help themselves and grow from that. And he was like, so it's not always about you or I. He was like, think about the wider picture and think about, you know, how this could also help the world. And I was like, that's, you know, enough to sort of take me over that tipping point, which was really awesome.
I mean, the impact of a record like this is immeasurable. Like the ripple effect, you'll never be able to understand, like the amount of lives it shapes. But the vulnerability takes bravery, you know, but it's bravery that's worth it. Yeah.
It's definitely strange, definitely weird and different, but I'm learning. I'm still super early in my career and I don't know it all, you know, like half the time I'm just fucking winging it, you know, but I'm getting better.
That's why it's fun.
Yeah.
What do you learn about touring and playing live shows from Ed Sheeran? Because he just gets on stage by himself in front of 100,000 people every night.
I'm about to find out. I go on tour with him from May till September, which will be super awesome. And, you know, both of us, I mean, apart from the fact he's very ginger and I'm very dark, we had we had quite similar, like, you know, routes in with the fact, like, I've been playing live since I was 13 years old, you know, like, truly, like hundreds of shows under my belt. And so, you know, for me, it's my bread and butter and the thing that I, like, love the most. Like, every single night on stage, no matter how tired I am, stressed I am, happy, sad I am, like, I love playing live. And so it's like, I've taught myself a lot of those things, but I think there's, you know, no one could teach you how to play stadium. I've played arenas, I've played big venues, I've played tiny venues, but I think stadium's like only for a few artists. And so to be able to go there and learn it from the Ginger Prince himself would be awesome.
But you guys have a lot in common. Very much playing a ton of shows under your belt. Very much like the busking culture, you know?
Yeah.
The UK does, like, they produce some of the greatest artists of all time.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, man.
I mean, it's true. I mean, you have the best buskers ever. Like, whenever I go to town, I literally can just go and just Leicester Square, go all the way, like, everywhere. There's just people singing in the white circles on the pavement.
It's insane, yeah.
It's really special.
Yeah, I think growing up there was such a privilege. And I explain, like, my hometown, like, all the time is like a mini world within sort of like a few miles, because Luton, where I grew up, is like one of the most culturally diverse places in England. So, like, I grew up with people from, like, Africa, Malaysia, like the Philippines, like Ireland, Jamaica, like literally like a global experience within 10, 20 miles.
It's a blessing.
Yeah. And so going and, like, celebrating Eid with my Muslim friends and hearing the music that comes out of that culture, or doing St. Patrick's Day and playing Irish folk songs in a bar, or, you know, or learning how to drum from my friends who come from, like, Brazilian culture, for instance. And it's like you inherit and adopt so much music and life and culture so early on that you can't help but be creative when you leave. And I think for me, that's really the embers of where it all started and where it all began.
But in your Brit Awards speech, didn't you say something, maybe I misunderstood it, but you said, like, you come from the town where people call it, like, the worst town in Luton?
Yeah.
Why is that?
So Luton has is a really working class town. It's got a lot of deprivation as well, but it's always labelled as a really bad town for all the people who don't live in it. And, you know, I think when you look at crime statistics, or you look at homelessness, or you look at all of this, like, yes, you will see those issues, but it's people always take those figures and never actually look at the life that's within it, and look at the culture that's within it. And I think from, you know, communities that are missing a lot financially, or with regards to infrastructure or help, they make up for in the way that they treat each other, in the way that they love each other, in the way that there's a beautiful connection between people there. And for me, it's really frustrating for people to be like, that's the worst town in the UK, where for me, it's home. And for me, yes, I don't know, you might get robbed on the way to school, or yes, your house might get broken into, but God, I learned so many life lessons from there, and I met so many great people so early on, which makes it, for me, the best town.
Your speech was amazing.
It was.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, very special. And you use your
Appreciate
platform
it.
for the right stuff.
Thank you.
Does that come naturally, or is that something you have to you think about?
I think it comes naturally. I think, and not to make this a conversation on race and identity politics, but I think growing up as a black person, you know, it's really obvious in life growing up that there's differences and there's disparities. And so for me, having grown up in that environment, and having grown up having to break through so many barriers, and seeing my mum have to do the same and my brother and sister having to do the same, you could either go two ways. You could be angry at everything, or be annoyed or frustrated at everything, or you could go down the path of, you know, educating everyone, or maybe being, I don't know, overly over the top in the way that you educate people. Or you could go down the line of not trying to be divisive, but trying to spread a message and bring awareness and cultivate change through understanding and meaning. And I think that you could either fight it, you could either over-educate on it, or you could find the perfect middle ground, which is actually not everyone's to blame here. And there's naiveties, there's ignorance that is at play, but also there's a way in which we could bring this conversation into a more objective and palatable state, where we'd be able to actually have discussions and open up where we can make changes together.
That. And the fact that you use art as a vehicle to get there is very much respect to you.
Thank you. I always wanted to do politics when I was younger. So, yeah, I grew up wanting to be a politician. So I guess I just picked up a guitar and did it this way instead.
Hey, never say never, and the journey is long, my friend. You know? PM wouldn't, I mean, that's not a bad title.
I might add it.
Mayor of London? I don't know. There's a lot of cool jobs over there. You got to get out of here because you have to hop on a flight to Denver.
Yes.
I really appreciate your time, your talent, your vulnerability, and your art. Really, your music is spectacular. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for sharing your stories in this way. My First Heartbreak, you got to listen to it. Plus, all of his music is waiting for you. It's on Amazon Music, link below. You good?
Yeah, some new song with Shaboozey coming soon.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Is it a collaboration?
Yeah, it's a collaboration, man.
Does the record start with you, or does it start with him? Are we in the? What is the story?
Starts with Boozy, man. I mean, yeah, he hit me with the idea, and I was blown away by it, man. And you know, I've always wanted to work with Shaboozey, and you know, we tried to make things happen a bit earlier, but Stargazing had its life, a bar song had its life, and it didn't quite cross over. And so, yeah, when we re-met later in the year, we both shared that want to work together. And I think what he's doing in country, and, you know, how he's breaking down walls and barriers,
Incredible.
and sort of like what I'm doing in folk and pop, it was just like so natural. And we get on like a house on fire. So we had to make a record together.
So what does he come to you with? Like, how much of a record do you listen to at first?
Oh, it was a lot of the way there.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the way there. And he opens up sort of like a verse and some melodic changes, and I was just like, yeah, dude, I want to be on this song for sure. Wrote my verse, made some melodic changes and harmonies, and brought it all together. But it was like I don't take any outside songs. Like I don't know if it's an ego thing, or it's probably an ego thing. I'm not even gonna lie. It's an ego thing. And so this was the first one that came to me, and I was like, I really like this song.
Wow. I really appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you guys, man.
I could talk to you for hours. Go. You got to catch a flight. Appreciate you.
I appreciate your time as well.
Myles
Thank
Smith,
you.
everybody.